Riding through Decatur, all black like I'm Darth Vader. Make a lot of money.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dominique Matthews, your host, and this is Not So PC. Now, recently, Larry Elder did an interview on The Breakfast Club. I haven't seen it, but I've been dying to watch it, and y'all are going to watch it with me. Come on.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV Charlemagne the Guy. We are The Breakfast Club. We have Teslin Figueroa with us, and we got a special guest in the building, 2024 Republican presidential candidate, Larry Elder. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
He does more than that, though. I mean, he was a radio host.
Radio host for 40 years.
Author, TV host.
Author,
New York
host.
Times best-selling list. I've got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Corner of Hollywood and Vine, southeast corner, just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, man.
Yeah, about a handful of radio guys do, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think it's you, Elvis Duran,
Angie
Howard
Martinez.
Stern,
Yeah.
Big Boy. Oh, Angie
Martinez.
Martinez.
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You said MAGA.
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family. And
This is why I love Larry Elder. And this is just a testament to what he does and who he is. You see, the Breakfast Club, usually when they have somebody on there, Charlemagne, they always joking around, interrupting, don't want to let them make the point. They always have something to say. And here we are, almost 3.5 minutes into the interview. Crickets. They literally soaking up what Larry Elder got to say. And it's hard. It was hard for me to pause it, but I know I got to interrupt it for YouTube purposes. But when he just speaks and it flows and he knows what he's talking about and you know he knows what he's talking about and he's not talking about his feelings, he's talking about actual facts, it's hard to interrupt that. We'll continue.
Because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers
If your
aren't in the home?
statistics are right.
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia. A young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there
racism?
used to be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh, man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
At the top of mind, I'd probably maybe say mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family. There's a direct.
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the.
You see, it's funny. He want to talk about what's wrong with Larry Elder's argument, which is zero wrong with it. He's just finding something wrong with it for argument's sake. It's black. I'm asking you what white people do wrong. Well, Larry Elder just asked you to give him an example. You said mass incarceration. He deaded that. And instead of you arguing your point further on mass incarceration, you go back, oh, well, what's wrong with the black people? It's always black. What? No. Prove Larry Elder wrong that it's not what he says and it's exactly what you said. But you can't do that. You're just here to make a show. And that's what it boils down to. A lot of these people are just here to make a show. That's all.
About the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black, and I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone reelected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, L.A. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1990s.
Okay. Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism since that.
And here she go, interrupting greatness. Now I seen her. It wasn't even a debate. She's an idiot. I'm completely biased against her. I'm gonna put that out. She's an idiot. And I seen her going back and forth with Vivek Ramaswamy, and her biggest argument was that he wasn't the class president in high school. Shut up, dummy.
Seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time.
Because he's not talking how she wanted him to talk.
I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right, and what I'm asking was, it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system, or black people in charge of that system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question: white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct. Okay. Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people.
Not voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who puts them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help you.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is that
now,
the
answer his question, who put him in charge?
Then I disagree. He did it because of
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question: was he white or black, Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you talked about the smash and grabs, right? And I find that interesting.
It's a joke.
The mass shootings that happen. Majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually, if you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, the percentage of mass shooters is under that. The percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. The percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that of mass shootings.
You specifically talked about the smash and grabs, though. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about the mass shooters that are usually white males?
One more time. They are usually white males because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number of mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population. They underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong?
Exactly.
I keep asking you that because
it seems to me, rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are, which I don't think is a particularly productive thing to do.
Well, I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI says.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had to.
And they won't. This is like his third time asking. Give me the proof of systemic racism. But they have no proof. They just want to keep saying it's the white man's fault. It's the white man's fault. It's the white man. If you like me and you come from the hood, you know good and well exactly where we at. But you can lie to yourself, which the majority of us do, because it's easier to say, It's their fault, not my fault. I did everything I could. No, you're a bum. You don't want to call yourself a bum, so you put it on somebody else. That's the easy route out. You make yourself feel better about being a bum, about being a failure, when it's out of your control. That's all we do. We make up lies, we tell each other lies, and we believe those lies. We believe them so hard they become actual reality, what we're living in now. And they want him to partake, and he won't, because he's a grown man with a thinking mind.
Systemic racism. In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks live below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
choice. But they still were living below the
ourselves.
poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Well,
on
can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home. A strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlemagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives Matter.
But all of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres, like every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy it.
Every time, look, the Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt. It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. And it was rebuilt, by the way, by black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, but who destroyed it to begin with?
Talk to him.
It was racists who destroyed it. No question about it.
We've
had race riots. So have Japanese.
So you do agree that there's racism? I'm just so confused.
I never even came close to saying. I never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just saying you don't think it's systemic racism?
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called slavery. We had something called Jim Crow.
That destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was system that destroyed. That was the system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now that's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants, because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you move, and then you go on to say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused.
And see, her attitude is exactly why the black nuclear family has been dismantled. Because you have women that act like this and they believe they're strong, they're independent, this is what they're supposed to do. You are a problem. You are a serious problem. Everybody should have the opportunity to do something. Okay. But that does equal rights does not mean equal outcome. And that attitude, she believes she stands on the same platform as a man. Now, when it comes to being financially sound or whatever, that's one thing. But the problem with women, and not just mostly black women, but women, period, they speak to a man as if they're equal. And when I say equal, I don't mean in society. I mean you speak as if a man could not maul you to death. Let's be honest. Men are bigger. Men are stronger. Men are faster. Men speak to each other in a certain kind of way because we don't want nothing to go down. Every time you walk into a room and there's another man, can I get him? Yeah, I probably could take him. Can I get him? Yeah, he'd probably be a little trouble. I have to move fast. This is what men do because we're just built that way. We have to assess the situation. Women don't do that because, oh, my man will take care of it. And women, you subconsciously know that. Yet you would talk like you're, for lack of a better word, gangster. Because society has made you feel that comfortable. Society that was built by men, might I add. And the reason you feel that comfortable because other men will protect you. That is what started the breakdown of the nuclear family, especially in the hood. You got women call men all kind of BAN words. You ain't you a B, you a this, you a that. When if you respect your position, like a man play his position, woman play her position, the household will be great. The household will be lovely. But yet and still, they act this way and they wonder why the nuclear family is not intact. You wonder why Christian values are under attack. It's because that man is not in his position up beneath God where he's supposed to be. He out in the street doing whatever. And now this lady thinks she can be out in the street doing whatever because she don't have a man to anchor her and this man don't have God to anchor him. I don't like her.
On, do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time to build it back, there was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism. Let's talk about.
So what are you just hung up on the word system?
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please? Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s. They had riots against Chinese in L.A., in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American or a Japanese American kid to have a child outside of wedlock, and a strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because I
didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
no, you said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
You talk about the Asian community. Asian community, it's easy for them to get loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community.
Okay.
If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which is why.
And then he just said a blanket statement. How do we even know it's easier? How do we even know it's easier? He just made a blanket statement. It's easier for them to get loans, right? It's easier. You're just saying something. Show the figures that says it's easier. I'm sick of people talking about how black people can't do this and black people can't do that. Show me something that says different. Because I've been able to do a whole lot. And I'm one of the blackest people you'll see.
Which is why one of the reasons I'm running for president is for school choice.
Also, would you say that is in our community is
systemic?
It's also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic too.
Boy.
Would you say that's true? I'm just asking a question.
You said a number of things. I just addressed one of them about loans. Mm-hmm. In 1965, Barack Obama, who was in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages. They didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Mm-hmm. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne. But see,
what's not true?
You're bringing back facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We'll talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because of you. House.
Because of you.
He just right. But my fault.
He just proved his point. Because of you, fool. Because of you, dummy. You dared to show your son this. This is exactly what Larry Elder talking about. And the dummy just walked right into it. They're not that bright. My son would be because of you, dummy. I'm so sick of people wanting somebody to blame all the time. The answer in your face. You teaching him what you know, so therefore your son will be better off. If there's nobody there to teach the little black boys what they know, except for robbing, stealing, and killing, that's what's gonna do. Your son is gonna be successful in real estate because that's what you show him. These black boys in the hood are successful in the dope game and the street life because that's what they get shown. It's cut. I don't know how to say this any further. This type of stuff get me upset because it's not that hard. It's not that difficult to understand. And you trying to make it difficult because you want to push your agenda. You want to push what you think, your ideology, and you don't want to say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. You don't want to say that. You want everybody else to bend over backwards for you because somebody owe you something, because you black. Don't nobody owe you nothing. Nobody in this world owe you nothing because Jesus Christ already paid it all through blood. So you better get up and make the best of what you got and stop making excuses. People like this.
Because of you and the drive. Because of you and the drive you put into them.
Not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into them.
We're not going to have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak and I'll let you talk.
Okay.
I can talk.
We have a conversation.
All right.
When we talk about it, right, it's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores. It's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African-American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it and 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man once said that if you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
let's just when you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion.
I'm so sick of seeing her.
Black people that was
like you're not even in the room. You're irrelevant. Go away.
The population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about the rate. I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is, the bottom line is it's more white people than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you'd only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking point.
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they say.
I'm not sure you understood.
No, understood.
I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast forward, they weren't able to pay them back, which proves the Citicorp point.
Exactly.
I'm not talking about
I know you're not. Because inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you Washington Post said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinancing loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of their credit score.
all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question.
The Washington Post is
Donald Trump, and Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said if you have a father, you won't go to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father, you were going to jail. My father never.
But guess what you did say, Mr. Elder? I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I
answer his question?
Guess what you did say.
May I answer his question?
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old. 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saves his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown L.A. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much, much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, I know for a fact, I know for a fact, had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. Like, how did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This is your words.
That's right.
It was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens to black people,
but it's not about race. It's not about race.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all of these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't.
I don't. Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail, and they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Well, he got indicted.
That's a difference.
He got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Charlamagne, the idiot.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying.
He's
going to get arrested.
He's been arrested. He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the 4th time. It's unfair.
Right.
All right, good people. Larry Elder on the Breakfast Club. I could have watched that whole thing right now, but I don't want to catch a copyright because, this is a lot of good stuff. But, and it was hard for me to interrupt because I just love to hear Larry Elder talk. But I'm definitely going to finish this after the fact. But I just want to leave you with 2 things. A few things. What do you think is the problem with the black community? What do you think is the problem with America? Do you believe racism is still running rampant? And as Charlamagne asked, why do you think it would be a bad idea or a good idea to still vote for a president facing 4 indictments as Trump is right now? Because I can promise you, if Trump don't make it to the finals and Larry Elder squeeze in, I'm going Larry Elder. If somehow Larry Elder don't make it, Vivek looking good. Vivek looking good. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Hey, we got a squad. The Democrats need to have a squad. Right now, it look like all they got is Robert Kennedy. Comment down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Definitely subscribe if you want me to keep on bringing you good entertainment like this, knowledge. If you want me to feed that that beast within you that's ready to just bust out and say, you know what, I'm not afraid to be a conservative. Hey, it is what it is. I think you should go ahead and come join the team. Not so politically correct. I'm gonna finish this up. But for everybody who still believe that we are so oppressed, we are so held back by this racist country, whatever, dude.